Sahana Vavato Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are meeting after a long time. There was our 75th anniversary celebration over one weekend, followed by which I had to go to Scotland and Newcastle for my monthly programs there. So our classes were interrupted for nearly a month or so. But we are continuing from where we left. Our alternate Saturday class, which deals with Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. Vedanta, as we have studied the important principles of Vedanta and applied it to our own life, to human life, which explores the different possibilities, physical possibilities, mental possibilities, and that exploration is incomplete without exploring the spiritual possibilities, because that is when the complete exploration will end. The end of exploration is when we explore in a very holistic way the human possibilities that each individual being is capable of. I say human deliberately because I would not use the word divine in this case, because it is very difficult for people who do not believe in any kind of spiritual realities or who do not believe in the religious principles to accept that the human being is divine. So even for a person who is, who believes or who swears by science, cannot deny the fact that there are various possibilities that a human personality is capable of. So when we say the science of human possibilities, it would not be rational to exclude the spiritual possibilities. If at all there is something known as spirit, which we here have defined as consciousness. So that was the discussion. So till now we were discussing all the different aspects of human personalities which lead to the concept of consciousness, which has been interpreted in different ways. The doctors, the physiologists, the neurologists will understand that idea of consciousness, which is very vital to our survival, because without conscious effort, a human being is no longer a human being. At the animal level, there is a rudimentary type of consciousness, which is action and reaction. As we discussed in our previous classes very clearly, the existence of a mind which can be divided into two parts, roughly, the lower mind and the higher mind. The lower mind, which deals with the reactions, actions, which also deals with the reactions to the outward impulse, outward inputs that we have through our different sense organs. We receive a lot of information from the world outside, and we adapt to those inputs, visual inputs, sound inputs, and we react in a particular way. So development of the mind, according to science, normally would mean how one reacts to the external realities, circumstances, and also logical, analytical thinking, which enables him to react in a much informed way as compared to animals. Otherwise, we are not, physiologically speaking, animals and we share the same characteristics as far as reacting to external things are concerned. Because as we see in some animals, their uh, reaction to the sound inputs. For example, dogs, they're very sensitive, smell and sound. They're very alert, much more alert than us. We can't smell our way and find out if there is, our sense of smell is so not so strong. So in some cases, the animals surpass us or demonstrate better skill when reacting to the external inputs. So we are not speaking of that mind. That mind is a trained mind. So a trained dog can sometimes be more useful than a trained human being when it comes to pure sensory perception is concerned and reaction to it is concerned. It can discover certain things, it can hear certain sounds which human beings are not capable of. So what makes a human being superior? That was the question. And we came to the idea or came to the conclusion in our previous classes that human beings have a faculty which is known as buddhi, which is known as a higher mind, which is often called as the discriminatory or viveka. The Sanskrit word is viveka. So we can discriminate between good and bad. We can discriminate, make choices in life. Whereas the animal mind, which may be far sharper than us, but it cannot decide. It cannot think of higher values. It cannot think of perceive the beauty in nature and analyze it as we do, or even understand the complications of logic, rational behavior, and all those things are developed in a human being. So that's why we call a human being, in the biologists or the evolutionists would call us a social animal. Unfortunately, they call us mere social animals. That means we are animals all the same, like them, but we are more social because we have a slightly better equipped mind. So what is that mind? According to scientists, I'm not coming to spiritual definition of consciousness as yet, but we just stick to what the scientists believe, that we have a very highly skilled logical mind which can and we can develop that mind, the skills, analytical skills, especially aesthetic skills and other skills. And according to them, we develop a higher sense of capacity, a higher capacity than animals to the reactions, to control the reactions that are possible. So that is why our human possibilities increase as we are more human. If we don't want to use the word divine, we have not deliberately not using the word divine, because they'll say, what is divine? So you can understand one is more human in the sense he is more compassionate. He does not act the way animals act. Animals just act out of some kind of reaction, some kind of survival mode. They are just taught, they just are happy with that kind of consciousness. Obviously, our consciousness is far more superior than animals. That is why the studies that are made in physical sciences, medical sciences especially, they try to find the location of this consciousness somewhere in the brain, saying that our cerebral cortex or whatever part of the brain they attribute this consciousness to is far more developed. It has far more capacity than a normal animal brain. That is why we exhibit as human beings greater possibilities than a dog or a cat or any other animal would do. We consider ourselves superior because we are capable of developing the mind. And according to them, it is the consciousness that is developing, because more of this consciousness is seen to come in play when we deal with higher and higher human beings, noble human beings, for example. And they attribute everything to the development of the brain through good education. So that is why they say the more educated person is, supposedly, I mean, it's not compulsory, but supposedly, he's supposed to be more exploring. I mean, he's supposed to be exhibiting his human possibilities more. But that doesn't happen. A highly educated person can be as evil as a wild animal, and he can destroy people using his intelligence. So, just education or higher education does not assure that a person is noble or better than any other human being. So, maybe some possibilities of his mind are not explored or are left unexplored. So, he is intelligent, but he is not using his intelligence for the benefit of society, for becoming a good person. So by attributing the development of consciousness to mere skill-based education, because the education that we receive is skilling our faculties, our analytical faculties, maybe our musical faculties, and we are much better than other human beings on a comparative scale in these areas, but that doesn't make us a totally well-developed human personality. And perhaps we have not explored many possibilities which some human beings explored and became Buddhas, Christs, and other great spiritual people in the world. So obviously they had the same physical brain, same body like ours, but they explored certain things which made them higher and better conscious beings, more useful conscious beings, more powerful conscious beings, that everyone has to accept. The place of human beings or people who have come to this earth, whom we call either the prophets or great saints and other people, they have supposedly, from a scientist point of view, explored their consciousness or the human capacity, human possibilities, much more than a normal human being. So what is this? This is, to some, what we discussed in all our previous classes was that the scientists would not believe of any consciousness which is not associated with the brain. And we discussed that consciousness, if it were just associated with the brain, then we cannot explain many processes like decision-making capacity, making the right choices, doing good things, volition, willpower. These things cannot be explained by pure education. So, development of the brain, of the physical brain, does not assure that a human being is developed spiritually. So we use the word spirituality because this is another faculty which our Indian traditions, especially Vedanta, believed that has to be explored as early as possible in life, because that is part of education which is sadly neglected. And we are just trying to find out how that faculty can be of the higher mind, which we described as buddhi in our previous class. So these mechanical processes of the brain, which we share with the animals, a lot of study has gone. Educational psychology trains you how to think, trains you how to appear for exams, trains you in different skills, computers, and many other skills, even musical skills. And one can be a highly educated and trained person, but that doesn't mean he is a highly spiritual person or a person who has the capacity to do the right things at the right time and make right choices in life. That is not assured. So what kind of education is required so that a child, if he has this education parallel with his normal school education, college education, university education, that he becomes a very mature individual, useful to himself, his family, his society around him, if not a saint or a prophet. You can't expect everyone to explore all the spiritual possibilities like Buddha, Jesus Christ, and Krishna, or all the different saints that are there the Vedantic saints and philosophers. Of course, that is a different field altogether. But even in the normal society, in a normal family situation, we find there are some people who are definitely better than others when it comes to making choices in life is concerned. They take the right actions, they do the right actions, and we just say that, oh, he's a mature person. His education has been good. Maybe the education, supplementary education, which he had, apart from his university education, his upbringing has been good, so his or her. So that faculty, we saw that is something which is attributed to the higher mind and is known as buddhi. So buddhi is totally distinguished from manas. I am repeating this again and again because we have this tendency of confusing mental development with brain development and the skills that are given in which help us to do well in our careers. That has nothing to do with this buddhi. So this distinction should be kept in mind. So the self, the buddhi, which is reflecting more of the light of the self. We came to the concept of self because we saw how the gross body, the center of the self, which is distinct from the body and mind, is perceived more in the buddhi. So the idea that self is something, or the spirit, as the Christians say, God, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. So they talk of divinity without even understanding what this divinity is. What happens when your buddhi is developed? So as I very often said, this education of training the buddhi was given to children at the age, right from the age when they went to school, 6 to 8, up to, that was a lifelong process. Like education is also a lifelong process. We keep learning. So along with secular education, the child was supposed to have, boy or girl both, was supposed to have a training in the development of this buddhi, which enables him to use his mind, use all the possibilities of the human mind to whatever capacity he can achieve in this life. We don't exhaust all the intellectual capacities, though we have, our brain has infinite capacity to learn many skills, but we end up exploring only a few of them. So also, everybody who has its training in spiritual life, in the development of buddhi, the Shastras say, they don't develop that buddhi to the extent. That is why Sri Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that when I shower my grace on some aspirant, I give him buddhi yoga. Yoga of buddhi means that cleverness with which he can understand things better, make better choices in life. So they are all integral part of the same personality, but for convenience, we are dividing the mind into a lower mind, manas, and a higher mind, buddhi. So thought, which we normally think is a function of the mind and not just the brain. So brain is a organ which expresses this consciousness through particular modification of the mind. So when the mind changes, it gives some thoughts, which is expressed through the brain, through our actions. Like we have a thought of fear. The first thought of fear, it creates some physiological disturbances. That is why all our illnesses, we think, is because of the thoughts in the brain. The thoughts are in the mind, which is distinguished from the brain as an organ. Brain is just an organ which collects inputs from our spinal cord and other nervous system, transmit it to the mind, and the mind, the buddhi, developed buddhi, gives it a command to behave in a particular way, and it just acts. So when we see certain things, there are certain emotions that are coming, expressing through the brain, like fear. So the moment the expression, the emotion of fear comes, there are certain physiological changes. The heart starts beating faster, and it has an impact on our prana and on our annamaya kosha, the physical body. So that is why all our illnesses, though they have their origin in the mind, ultimately they end up affecting our body. So that is why they are known as psychosomatic illnesses. They are basically psycho functions of the mind, functions of wrong thinking, thoughts which are not under our control, and they create not only a depression or any sort of negative emotion in the mind, but also in the body. Unconsciously, it impacts the body, and then we fall a prey to different diseases. So, the one of the examples that we saw was in the dream state. We obviously don't have any of these organs active. For example, we are sleeping, we are not seeing anything, nor are we, when we are dreaming, of course, we don't hear and recognize the voices around us. Our sense organs are practically closed. So, how do we see things in a dream? How do we hear things? Some people hear many things, somebody coming and telling you something, but your ears are not registering anything. There's no noise, absolute silence, but still in dreams you see. So though he is not even conscious, fully conscious of the body, in the dream state, the Vedanta says, how does he get inputs from? How can he see people in dream? How can he see nightmares? He can see good dreams. So where all the sense organs are practically inoperative. So whatever be the manifestation of the consciousness that we see in a dream state, or even further in deep sleep state, the Vedanta clearly says that this consciousness reflects through the body, the prana, the vital forces of the body, which run the body. It also reflects through the lower mind, manas. It also reflects more through the buddhi, that is the higher mind. And using the memories that are stored in our mind, mind you, the memories which are stored in our mind, we keep dreaming, where we keep seeing things. Those memories are also, you may say, solidified or petrified thoughts. Thoughts which we have been thinking for long and long and long periods of time, over several lives. When we sleep, those things come out. And the soul perceives it. There is a consciousness which perceives that. So we have to try to find out, according to the science of human possibilities, what is these possibilities? We can't exclude dream possibilities and just wish it away, saying it's just a dream. Just as we try to explain all our physical actions, our reactions, as so many complexes. Nowadays, there is this psychological counseling, especially children, when they can't pay attention, they are restless. They will give some name like ADHD, hyperactivity disorder. Because of wrong habits, they say, okay, we have to correct it either through medicines, make a person calm. Why is he so restless? Why is the child not in control, or even an adult not in control of his thoughts? So there are various external reasons the psychologist will attribute without going into the root cause. That something is wrong. The consciousness that is being reflected in the mind is not a clear reflection. There's a lot of, that is what impurity of the mind means. When we say mind is impure, all we are saying is, that's not that certain moral rules we have broken. Who is a pure person? A person who is pure is a person whose buddhi is awakened and his thoughts are in his control. So is not impacted, whatever be the external circumstances, his buddhi reacts in a proper way. And that is when we say that that person is, his consciousness is awakened, it's alert. It does not react to the external world. He just is not hyper-reactive or hyperactive with absolutely no control over his thoughts. This is a very important faculty, buddhi. That is why they say at the age of 6, you are given one training where Gayatri is given to both boys and girls, who are supposed, the Gayatri is nothing but a prayer to the Lord for developing our buddhi, the choice-making capacity, so that we take the right decisions at the right time in our life, take the right decisions so that our lives are happy and peaceful. That is the whole function of buddhi. And also it explores more human possibilities. We become not only better human beings, but they say, Vedanta says, the divine element in us, which is pure consciousness, the more consciousness that we manifest in our external life, the more divinity we express. That is how divinity is explained. The more of spirit, less of matter. So Swami Vivekananda had once defined what is civilization is the progressive manifestation of this divinity, the spirit, over matter. In normal animals, matter prevails over the spirit. Whereas a human being, it's the spirit that prevails. The consciousness prevails over matter. When we see the lives of Buddha, Jesus, and all these great prophets, they did not allow any changes in the outside world to impact their life. They never lost their peace of mind. We were discussing this in Edinburgh the other day, where the topic was given, how do we determine a spiritual progress of a person? How do we determine whether as spiritual aspirants we have made any spiritual progress at all? Is there a measuring, like you measure degrees, a person's education by the qualifications and degrees? Do we have anything to measure spirituality? So one of the measures is a peaceful mind. In a peaceful the personality may be, the physical body, the physical circumstances may be extremely incompatible with what we want, but still our mind is not disturbed. It retains its peace. So we discussed the example of Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, who was placed in circumstances. I just gave the example that who could be more spiritual? What could be a better example? Surrounded by selfish relatives and some mad relatives and poverty and so many things which do not conduce to a peaceful life for ordinary human beings like us. She could live very peacefully. And in once when somebody complained of troubles and some kind of suffering, she said, by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, I never knew what suffering is in life. And one who has suffered physically says this. So it's a mystery. What is this higher consciousness? What does higher consciousness, development of this buddhi do to a person? Does it make him have manifest powers? Many things, as there are fantastic ideas about what spirituality does to a human being. It doesn't do anything except it helps one to hold on to the spirit as compared to the changing matter that impacts his or her life. That is the entire spiritual training that is given, that is supposed to be given in the tradition of Vedanta. So this has been prescribed along with the education that they get when they are very young, even when they are as young as 6, whether they are boys or girls. The prayer of Gayatri is, "Oh, the Lord of the Sun, who is the Lord of light, of illumination, of knowledge, please awaken my dhi, dhiyo yo na prachodayata." So that's a very universally accepted prayer of the Vedas, most important prayer other than Om. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say this Gayatri, the meaning of Gayatri, it's not just the chanting of Gayatri. The meaning of Gayatri, if it were to be made clear, the child would understand right from young age that I need a faculty apart from my education, which will make me a highly skilled person and a career-oriented person. Also to develop that kind of maturity which will make my life, in spite of prosperity or in spite of poverty or in spite of any circumstances which are trying to press me down, to retain some kind of stability of mind, which is the goal of spiritual life, that peace which eludes us. So we see the mind plays a very important role, the development of the mind, especially the higher mind or the buddhi. So the mind conveys, the final conclusion we discussed many times, but I'm repeating it, that the brain at the most is a vehicle of our consciousness. It should not be confused with the origin of consciousness. Brain is just a medium. As we express our consciousness, we use the brain as a medium to give commands to our body and also to our mind. Mind also, remember, is something material. So spirit is something different. So then the question came, where is this location of the self, the so-called self? Who is the witness self? Where the pure consciousness resides? When we talk of God or talk of reality, we call it Satchidananda and so many names, Brahman and other things in Vedanta. And we also talk of the soul, the spirit. In whichever tradition you go, we have a concept of the eternal spirit which resides in this temporary mind, or changing mind, changing body, changing physical reality. So the more we read that spirit, we are more spiritual. So when the spirit wins its battle over matter, as Jesus said, the kingdom of God is the kingdom of the spirit within. What does he mean that? That the spirit or the consciousness within should be the controller of all the other functions, not the other way around. So according to the Upanishads, the body, which is known as Brahmapuram, why it is given a name Brahmapuram? Because it is where our self resides. So the Chandogya Upanishad, which is a very important Upanishad, Chandogya and Brihadaranyaka, where Shankaracharya comments and shows that these Upanishads don't directly teach you about Brahman. They teach you about the place of Brahman, the place of spirituality in our life. So where is this indwelling self? When you say I, what do you mean? Who is this I? Is it the body? Is it the prana? Is it the brain? Is it the lower mind? If they were these things, then our life would be miserable, because our mind changes. A depressed mind, you will say, I am depressed. If you are very happy, you will say, I am very happy. At that time, you will enjoy because your mind is happy. But it doesn't stay like that for a long time. It is also subject to change. So when it is subject to change, you will find that this changing, the spirit which is within, the consciousness that is within, is fairly stable. It is eternal, being it of the nature of eternity. It doesn't change, but it helps us to deal with change, not to get disturbed, as most of us do. When change happens, especially when change happens which we do not want, we do not want many things in life which are forced upon us. At that time, we lose our mental stability. We think we are depressed, we are angry, we are deprived of certain things which we deserve, and then we don't know how to handle our mind. So this, according to the Upanishads, the indwelling self, when you awaken the buddhi within you, which is one of the important faculties. When we say development of human possibilities, we really mean development of this buddhi, which is a higher faculty of the mind. Not used in the sense it is used in the vernacular languages, where buddhi means cleverness. That cleverness can mean that you know how to manipulate and live in this world, which is something like chalaki they call in Hindi. But that is not what buddhi is. When you say buddhi in Sanskrit, it means the higher consciousness which helps you maintain stability. That is buddhi. It does not let the external happenings, either to your body, to your mind, or to the situation around you. The changing things will change. That is what Vedanta says. The Brahmapuram, when you say Brahmapuram, it is a place where Brahma resides, that Brahman resides. But unfortunately, it has got mixed with the Puram, and we identify, and he is the inner ruler. They have given the example in this Chandogya Upanishad that the king resides in the body. Body is like a whole kingdom, and all the different organs and different faculties that we have, the lower mind, the prana, and they are like different attendants, different soldiers who, as a who helps the inner ruler, the self which is within, with so many attendants, the 10 organs and the mind. They are like all attendants. They help us. They are not our whole existence. They're part of our existence. They help the king. The king uses them to rule the kingdom. So it is known as Brahmapuram. So, but who is that Purusha? Who is that self within who has to be identified if we want peace? Because that principle of consciousness, which is deep within the heart, in Taittiriya Upanishad, he says all the functions all the human possibilities that we exhibit, Shankara does not deny. Vedanta doesn't say these are untrue. They are very much true. But the problem is they are changing, and when they change, it gives us the corresponding emotion in the mind of sadness, grief. When we think a changing thing is eternal, like we have wealth. As long as we have wealth, we have a feeling. It's just a feeling in the mind that it is giving us a lot of security. Suddenly the wealth goes away or it reduces, then it causes an anxiety. So it is change that has caused this anxiety. Similarly with health, when everything is fine, we are in a state of joy. We see we are healthy. But when the health breaks down for some reason, then it impacts not only the body but also the mind. And the mind feels sad or feels miserable, feels that it is suffering. So Vedanta says these are because the ruler, the inner ruler, whatever be his location. Now we'll come to the location. Where is the location of this pure consciousness, this pure spirit which is running the empire? He is not one with the empire. The king is not the empire. The king is the owner of the kingdom. So that is a beautiful expression which has been given, that the location of the self is the Brahmapuram, means that is Brahmapura. Pura means where he resides. So our physical body, with which we do many things in life, which are all, of course, of a temporary nature, all our actions, all our education, all our achievements, they're all temporary. They have a limit, say 100 years at the most. So all those things which are of a temporary nature is like an abode. We live in a house. We don't eternally, that house does not belong to us. We may be renting it, or even if we own it, we don't actually possess it. In the sense, after a certain, when the body goes, all these things are left behind. So what is that innermost self? He is just the resider, like a Brahmapuram, like we are living in a particular city. The self also resides temporarily. The man's psychophysical system is a reflection of that luminous self. So there is this description given. Now these are all symbolic. You should not take them literally. When we say we meditate in the heart, that is where the seat of buddhi is. We spoke a lot about what buddhi is. So the heart is like a lump of flesh. This is according to Taittiriya Upanishad, where in the first chapter, the 6th verse, Shankara comments. He says, heart is like a lump of flesh, like a lotus bud facing downwards with the stalk upwards, in which are apertures for numerous arteries. It is the receptacle of life, and it is familiar, being observed when the body is dissected. So he's talking of the physical heart. There's nothing to do with the body. The spirit does not need a location. But when we identify ourselves with the spirit, our own Jivatma, we have definitely point to a location. When you say I, you point to the heart. You don't point to your head. So this physical equivalent of our spirit, where it manifests, is known as Brahmapura, the whole body. And in a special place, the king resides. That is what he says. The mind, the heart is a tiny space about the size of a thumb. That is how they describe. Where the mind is located, the subtle mind. He's not talking of the gross mind. which we share with animals. We discussed this. The manas, which is a very gross kind of mind, which just reacts to the external input, is totally different from this antakarana, the subtle mind, the buddhi. So Hindu psychology or Vedantic psychology clearly distinguishes between buddhi, development of buddhi, and development of manas. What we call as skill, educational skills, is development of the manas. What we call as spiritual skills or comprehending skills or logic or decision determinative skills, where we learn the child to or teach ourselves the faculty of making choices, is known as determinative. So there are two distinct phases in the mind, and buddhi is actually the reflection of this self within, the spirit within, which impacts all the other faculties of the mind, and through the mind, the sense organs, and through the sense organs, our entire body. So Upanishad very often refer to this Jivatma, the self within, as Guhatita, means one which is protected or safe within, just as a king is safe in his inner chambers. Guha means cave. So Guhatita, it is situated in the buddhi, Guhatita. So the buddhi is located, because buddhi is located in the heart. So there is a description in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which I will read out. What is this self? It is the omnipresent being Purusha, which is locked up in this physical body and is identified with, it is not buddhi, but it is identified with buddhi, and is in the midst of the organs, the different organs, and is self-effulgent light of consciousness within the heart. So this is what our rishis discovered. This is what Vedanta discovered, that the stable self within the unstable body and mind and all the other things, the stable self resides in a tiny, like a tiny flame of the size of the thumb within the heart. So this is a kind of meditation which the Upanishads say, that flame in the heart. Maybe you begin with a physical flame or a physical Ishta, whom you see outside. You imagine that Lord to be seated within. But actually what we are meditating upon is the pure consciousness. So the heart, the lotus-shaped heart, which is referred to, which is the physical heart, of course, but that doesn't, it signifies the entire Prakriti. The body is made of different elements, physical elements, the prana, the forces are running the body. So everything, they constitute our physical, psychophysical system, finally is reduced to a seat in our consciousness or in our physical body, which is known as the heart, the spiritual heart. And that is why it is considered to be the most vital part, where the body, it is also known as Chit Jada Granthi, means our awareness, our consciousness is connected to the body by a knot. So when you meditate, you dissolve that knot or you cut that knot of ignorance. And then they say your spirit shines as pure spirit, not mixed with anything else. The example that is given is, there is a light. It is coming through the windows. So the windows, of course, we see the light, the reflected light of the sun, which is outside. And we see the reflected light shining, reflected by the windows, either green, red, yellow, whichever color is reflected, we see and we think that is the light. But it is just a reflection of the original light, which is beyond our comprehension. So that's why they say it's when the light of knowledge, that is what Gayatri Mantra really means, that Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata, let my Dhi be awakened. So I see that inner light, I see that inner self, and not get disturbed by the light of the colored light, which is a reflection of that original light. I want to see the original light. So along with all the development of the body, development of manas, a child was expected to meditate on the Gayatri when Gayatri Mantra, which is symbolizes this development of the buddhi, it's a prayer. It's just a prayer which occurs in the Vedas, where one is asking the Lord himself or Brahman himself to enable the child or enable the person who is growing to reflect more of that consciousness so that he can see things in a proper perspective. This is what we mean when we are exploring the human possibilities. We start with exploring physical possibilities, which give us a good body, good physique, good exercise. We also develop the mind, which is another level of development. We also develop the prana, train our body to fitness and other things. They are just training of the pranamaya sharira. But the total development or total exploration of our possibilities come when we make the body, the mind, the organs, the lower mind a fit instrument to reflect the light of buddhi or light of consciousness, which is in that Brahmapuram, so that you can rule the kingdom wisely. If the king is alert, awakened, then only his kingdom will be ruled properly. That is the idea. So, Chandogya Upanishad further says, it says, in this city of Brahman, Brahmapuram, atha yad yadidam asmin Brahmapure daharam pundarikam means in this city of Brahman. Dahara means that is a tiny space. In the city of Brahman, there is a small lotus. Lotus is symbolic, mind you. It is not the physical lotus that we see. There is a small space, a small seat of consciousness. Inside there is a tiny space, Akasha. That which is within this, one should seek to know and yearn to know. That is the essence of meditation. That is the essence of meditation and doing any sadhana. That is the essence of repeating the Gayatri Mantra. And that is the essence of spirituality. Because when you touch that buddhi, when that buddhi becomes awakened, they say a human being becomes more stable, more steady, he's not tossed around by the changes, because there is hardly anything we can do to prevent change in life. Change will occur. Circumstances will change. So that's why when the Mysore Maharaja asked Swami, he gave a wonderful definition of life. Life is the unfoldment of a being. That is what is spoken of here in the Upanishads. When under circumstances trying to press it down. So circumstances are always trying to press us down, trying to control us, trying to make us miserable. As Swamiji says, we are surrounded by these circumstances which are beyond our control. Some of them are under our control, but because of lack of development of buddhi, we have let it out of control. This Brahmapuram, the servants and the organs, they are not listening to us. That they are not listening to the king. So how can he administer the kingdom? He has not controlled them. They are controlling him. That is what exactly the science of human possibilities is about. The possibilities are not explored, or even if they are explored, they are not manifest because we are not under their control. They are controlling us. The body controls us, our desires, our mind, our organs, the sense organs. They are all going chaotic. In a kingdom which is not ruled properly, the king is not in control. That is what this Upanishad says, that you try to seek the king, try to seek that strength from which the whole Brahmapuram is controlled by you. When they say Brahmapuram, it is the human personality, psychophysical reality. So we begin with ourselves, not by changing the world. We think by changing ourselves, we change how we react to the world. That's the only thing we can do. We can't expect the world to change the way we want. Every king may think that he will become an emperor and he will rule and everybody will follow him as he wishes. That is what most of the emperors thought, including Alexander. And then they realized that that is not true. You can't control the external. You can control the internal. Our rishis, this Vedantic seekers, they were more practical. They knew that there no amount of power, glory, intelligence is enough to make things around us. Even in the small unit of family, we can't control. Forget the states, forget the big universe and other things. We can just forget that we'll bring peace in the world and all. We can't even bring peace in the family. So that is why these people were wise. They said, you go within and find your own problem. It is your problem. World is not going to change. The world will always be transformative in nature. Whether you like it or not, you will get things that you like, things that you don't like, people that you like, people that you don't like. And you can't just imagine that you will create a situation where everything around you obeys you and you will have your will. That has never happened in life, no matter how powerful the king or the emperor is. So the only change you can make, according to the Upanishads, is to manifest more and more of this buddhi, the light of buddhi. That is why the Gayatri prayer says, Dhiyo yona prachodayata. That is the only prayer which is supposed to be the highest prayer taught to young children, not when we are old. It has to be taught when the child is getting his secular education. And the rishis were wise that without this prayer, they are not going to adjust in life. Their life will be totally miserable because they don't know. The king cannot control the Brahmapura, the kingdom, their own kingdom. That is, their own physical possibilities will not be explored. So that is why physical, mental, and all the possibilities will not be explored. So that is why in this Upanishad, the self first has to identify itself strongly with the buddhi. That is when we say, according to Vedanta, the spiritual life begins. Because buddhi reflects more of this consciousness than the mind, the lower mind, or the prana or the body. The more we go towards the gross, the more diluted it becomes. And that is why we come back to the definition and will conclude. Swamiji says, the progressive reading of this consciousness or spirit into matter. That is what all the religious or the spiritual teachers of the world taught. The kingdom of God is kingdom of the spirit within. If one has to understand the true message of Christ or true message of Buddha or true message of any Vedic rishi, all of them pointed to the eternal within the transient that they saw around them. And there's only one solution, how to touch that, how to develop, awaken that buddhi through Gayatri Mantra, through any other prayer, through meditation, through any yoga. All are designed in such a way that you manifest that buddhi which gives some kind of stability, which enables you to deal with change in this changing world. You require some stability, something that is stable, a king that is stable within. So in this Brahmapuram, this king, a stable king, will alone can be happy, peaceful. But if all his organs and all his attendants and all his soldiers are going on a strike, or maybe they don't obey his commands, in short, he is not in charge of his own psychophysical reality by the awakening of the buddhi. That is why it was given such a prime importance in our life. So the whole spiritual life is, that is why in the Christian tradition also they call it awakening of the heart, which is nothing but the real meaning of Gayatri. When you say the awakening of the heart, it's the awakening of the buddhi. So the characteristics of buddhi is what we are discussing in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Sava ayam atma brahma vijnanamaya manomaya pranamaya chakshurmaya shrotramaya. The self or that pure buddhi which is reflected, which is identified first with the buddhi, then with manas, then with prana, the vital principle that run the body, then with our eyes, ears, earth, water, the elements around us, fire, and what is other than fire, the other states of physical existence, the desire or the absence of desire, by virtue, absence of virtue, good, evil, everything that is perceived by us and inferred by us. Perceived by us in when you are awake. But when we are dreaming, where are those objects? Where are our sense organs? Everything has gone to sleep, but still we see objects. We hear things. The dream world is equally real. So what is seen physically when we are awake, or what is inferred as in the dream, or even in when we do some kind of daydreaming or thinking with closed eyes, that is also inference. We are not seeing things, we are inferring things. So the individual does all these things because the light of Buddhi is shining through the different aspects of his personality. That is why the Kathopanishad very clearly says the omnipresent Purusha, it is there in the Bhagavad Gita as well, that the omnipresent Purusha, or that the center of consciousness, is existing in all hearts of men. Riddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, the self that you are searching outside, the God that you are searching, is in your own heart. Only thing, you have not discovered it, because nobody has taught you the art. They have taught you how to conquer armies and fight with others. That skill you have developed. That is your greatness, no doubt. But they have not taught, I am teaching you the Bhagavad Gita message. He says, this is where he is hidden. And because you did not search for him there, that omnipresent Purusha, in Kathopanishad it says, the innermost self, which is meditated as of the size of the thumb, every man or every human being, and this is telling to this young Nachiketa, mind you, is not telling it to a grown-up person. A small boy who defied his father and said that, no, I want to know the truth. You are all giving me wrong knowledge. His father was a great scholar, his own guru. But he said, you are talking of this rituals and that will take me to heaven. I am not satisfied because the scriptures teach something greater than that. And I want to know the mystery of death and life, what is spirit, what is matter, and you are not a competent teacher. So he gets angry and curses him. He goes to the king of death, Yama, and Yama teaches this 12-year-old boy who is full of curiosity to know what exists in the heart that survives after death. He is more wise than not only his father, but everyone around him. And he goes there, he has the patience, and he has been told this greatest truth. You can imagine, Krishna teaching Arjuna, we can understand, a very powerful man, but a child going there, and he is telling him how he should meditate and distinguish the physical body, the threefold body, as if one is separating the slender stalk from the munja grass. So there's a type of grass where you have to separate the innermost stalk without breaking it. So he's just telling Nachiketa that you have to be as careful. You are so careful with other things, but when in your internal life, when you meditate, you are not so careful. This knowledge, because you are capable, you are a adhikari, you have come to me, I am teaching you this knowledge. So he was lucky because he was wise, that buddhi had been awakened in him. And he goes there and he says, every person, Yama is telling Nachiketa, that effulgent and immortal self, which is reflected through your buddhi, through the mind, should be known, and that alone is immortal and effulgent, and that will lead to everlasting peace. All other things, as you said, because he was offered many things. He was asked to go back. He said, don't ask me all this secret. You just go and enjoy the world. I'll give you half the world, whatever you want, wealth. And so Nachiketa says, I have not come for that. I want the answer, because other things I can manage on my own. That was taught in my school by my father and everyone else. But for this knowledge, I have come to you, and I'm not going unless you give me the total knowledge. because he wanted to explore all his possibilities, not just his physical, mental, intellectual possibilities. Nachiketa was keen that if there is a higher possibility, if something can teach me immortality, eternal peace, I would like to get that knowledge also. And even if it means to go to Yama to get that knowledge. So these are all wonderful stories. And we will now conclude. So if there are some questions, if in the chat, if there are some questions, I'll take one or two.
Question: do the chakras or spiritual center as Thakur describes in his spiritual
Acha, let us not discuss about, because that is another field. We are discussing about Vedanta. Vedanta does not talk about any chakras. These chakras have become very popular, but they are nothing but 7 stages. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is very simplified. Don't mysticize or don't think it are some mystical chakras, red, blue colors, all sorts of things passing by the name of so-called Kundalini and all should be avoided, because they are to be understood in the proper spiritual context. They have no physical existence in the sense as we imagine it to be. So Sri Ramakrishna compared it with the Sapta Bhumi. Sapta Bhumi or Shat Chakras, he has equated. Sapta Bhumi means different levels of consciousness. Even if we know that, it is more than enough. Too much of curiosity will lead to total confusion. So 6 chakras mean 6 level of consciousness, which is very clearly explained in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. If you go, he is giving a very simple but very powerful explanation without going. It's not a subject of discussion of Vedanta, which is what we are discussing today. It is about Tantras. Tantras gave this concept of 6 chakras based on the Sapta Bhumi of Vedas. Thakur says they are the same. Sapta Bhumi, that is when the consciousness is raised to the highest level or the highest Sahasrara chakra, you are detached from the physical reality. Only the pure spirit remains. So that is in brief about the chakras. That was the question, isn't it? Then?
The question is like, it's similar, yes, continuation to what you said. The question is a little bit full question. Do the chakras or spiritual centers as Thakur describes in his spiritual experience?
Yes. Yes.
Does it relate to focusing spiritual heart and developing the Buddha?
Yes. Yes. This is a good question. Yeah, well, I did not hear the whole question. So, do these chakras relate to the level of the development of buddhi? Obviously, yes. So that is why they say when you say the heart chakra, without going into the specifics of what these levels of consciousness mean, when you meditate in the heart chakra, that is the spiritual heart, that is what we are discussing. Vedanta makes it very simple. Tantras explain it in a different way, because different levels of consciousness, they correspond exactly to the same. If you read the gospel as the questioner has asked, that whether it represents, yes, this is the spiritual awakening, is the awakening of the heart chakra according to Tantras. But this level of consciousness is just the beginning, the discovery of the spiritual heart, buddhi. That is why Sri Ramakrishna said the Vedas are merged into Gayatri, which is a very powerful prayer, and the Gayatri is merged into Om. So when you reach that highest chakra, you definitely realize that you are pure consciousness and nothing in the world disturbs you, become a Jivan Mukta. Is that answer okay? Yeah. So shall we conclude? Do you have any questions?
First time.
No, first time, but you can ask, no problem. Yeah, I will just conclude. You can talk later. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.